If you're in a relationship that sucks, I got to tell you some harsh truth. It is your fault. Now, one thing that I've noticed about nice guys who are in early recovery is that they complain and they commiserate and they bitch about their partners. They think it's their partner's fault that their relationship isn't working, but it's the opposite. In fact, it is their fault. Now, this might piss you off, but hold on, because there's one thing that nice guys often overlook when it comes to life, love, and this. And it is this one thing: you are 100% responsible for the quality of your life. Welcome to the Nice Guy Show. My name is Chuck Chapman. I'm here today with my host, Ari and Faisal. And today we're going to be talking about nice guys in relationships. So, Ari, what do you think? If you're in a dysfunctional relationship, is it your fault?
I totally agree. It's important to take responsibility. There's so many steps along the way to creating a non-sucky relationship, and you know, creating your full life, your great cake of a life before you even get into a relationship. Developing yourself as a man. These are your responsibilities. It's having all the supports in your life, your friends, your colleagues, your health, your hobbies, your practices. That is all your responsibility, and those are things that support a relationship. It's your job to clarify, what kind of woman you want. It's your job to clarify the type of relationship you want. Do you want something more casual? Do you want a more traditional marriage, or something in between? It's your job to pace the relationship and not progress it faster than you are ready for. It's your job to assess the partner every step of the way. It's your job to create and maintain chemistry. So you got to adopt this stance that you're making a daily conscious choice to be with that person too. That's something that I think is a key point, is that you're always making a daily conscious choice to be with them. So these are all your responsibilities. And it's your responsibility to end a relationship if the chemistry has died, or it's not making you happy. So you might hear this and think, what's my partner's responsibility? They're also responsible for assessing you and making a conscious decision to be in a relationship. If you're with a woman, they have a responsibility to work through their own shit and be open to you. I won't get into a relationship with someone who won't work on their own shit. To me, that's one of the most important criteria. Could be with therapy, coaching, just their own personal work. So you want to choose someone who's open to making changes in themselves. So these are all your responsibilities. So that's my short answer.
What about you, Faisal? What do you think?
Well, the question is that it's all your fault. I disagree with that. I disagree with the fact that it is not all your fault. I agree with that it's your responsibility, and there's a big distinction between that. And that's what I want to make. So, for example, let's take the captain of a ship. He is in charge. He's responsible for his staff, the people on board. Everything starts and ends with him. So he's responsible. Now, there may be situations, circumstances, political stuff, or Mother Nature stuff that will have an impact on the voyage, his decisions. Nevertheless, it's still his responsibility. Now, before my awakening, I had a typical attitude to what most men and women have. It's everybody else's fault. I just pointed fingers at everybody else. It's her fault, it's their fault, it's the government's fault, and everything as well. I get that. There are some points that it's not all your doing. Now, the distinction I want to make between fault and responsibility, and how I see it, is fault to me is there's a lot going on in our own psychology, in our software. Humans are not perfect. We're far from perfect. If if we were looked at human as a software, my background is tech, and that's how I see the brain. It's flawed. It's got bugs in it. It's got mistakes and errors in it. It doesn't always function well. It will clunk, it will crash, it will do dysfunctional things. So therefore, putting a fault on a system that's programmed in that way or developed or evolved in that way to say that the result is the fault of the system, actually it's a combination of I believe our programming. It's a combination of our upbringing, values. Those are what I say is it's a collective fault. So I wouldn't put the fault on one person. I would say it's a responsibility, single responsibilities on you. It's what you can decide. So when I awoken from my divorce, I took 100% responsibility. I remember that day I fell to my knees and said, everything's happening in my world is my responsibility. It's not my fault that things will happen, situations, other people's neurosis, other people's circumstances, but I can take full charge of that. And so what I did was take away my locus of control from the outside and then start working to bring the locus of control. Now, locus of control is just a perception and understanding about the causes of events. So I took very much little responsibility, and that was dangerous. It was dangerous because I was opening myself up to repeat the patterns.
So
And
yeah,
one thing I want to actually complete on this. Whereas a captain of a ship is fortunate situation that before he becomes the captain or he or she becomes a captain, they go through training. They go through training in order to, look after the ship, navigate it. When we are the captain of our life, we don't have that training. We don't have that privilege. We don't have support and guidance. We don't have those initiation guidance passed to us. Instead, we're learning mathematics and geography and we're learning all these skills, but not the human skills. So that's the biggest difference between the captain of our life and the captain of the ship is that they go through training and we don't. And that then I would say is a collective fault rather than an individual fault.
And I'm going to argue a little bit here that I think we're talking about semantics here, the idea of what's fault and responsibility. Because if somebody's at fault, what are you asking? You're asking the question, who's responsible for this? Right? And if I'm 100% responsible for my life, then I am also at fault. And I think one of the things that nice guys, whenever they hear a word that maybe feels a little bit shaming or off-putting or something like that, they want to rewrite it and be like, oh, I'm not at fault. I am responsible, but I'm not at fault. And I think fault and responsibility kind of, like I said, it's semantics. The fault is something's wrong. Okay. Who's responsible for fixing the thing that's wrong? Who's at fault? Not who's to blame, but who's at fault. And I think that that's the thing that as nice guys, we often fail to take full responsibility for our own lives, our own actions. Okay. So if you're in a bad relationship, it is your fault in that you're responsible. You're either not doing the work that you need to do on yourself and with your partner as a couple, or you're in a relationship, you're choosing to be in a relationship that simply doesn't work. So either way, whether you want to call it fault or responsibility, you are 100% responsible for your life and the quality of your life. And like you made a choice, whether or not it was fully, you went in with your eyes completely wide open or not. You made a choice and you're in this relationship and the relationship isn't working. So it is your responsibility, or so not blaming or shaming about it, but more of, I actually like the word fault because it makes me feel a little uneasy. Saying I'm responsible for something is like, oh, yep, I'm responsible. But to say I'm at fault, like, ooh, that cuts a little bit. And so I actually kind of like the word at fault because of that. That it gives you just a little bit more energy behind the word to be like, okay, I got to make a difference here. I got to fix this. So
You think
anyway, that's my take.
you think nice guys need a sort of a whack in the head to wake them up? Is that part of it?
Well, that's been part of my experience. That's a great question. What do you think? You think nice guys need a whack upside the head sometimes to get them to wake up?
Sometimes, I don't love the word fault because it does sound kind of blaming and shaming. But I do think the take home, or one of the take homes, is it's your responsibility to learn from your relationship. I think that's one of Dr. Glover's important concepts. Is a relationship is it's a powerful growth machine. I think is how he describes it. So you know, yeah, it's kind of like Faisal was saying. You're going to go in to a relationship not knowing some things, not knowing how to do some things. We're not taught these skills, and that is a problem of how kids are socialized, or boys are socialized, or girls. So you should expect to go in and encounter some problems, just like you'd encounter problems at work or any other arena in your life. But it's your attitude about it. Do you have an attitude of I'm gonna work on this, I'm gonna learn from it, or do you have an attitude of passivity, that this just sucks and it's not something I can fix it? So I think the one of the healthiest things a nice guy can do is really adopt this sense of agency over their relationship, which is what I was describing earlier. There's all of these things you can take responsibility for, which can feel like a burden, but that's where your power is. That's where the control is, when you take responsibility for things. If you're saying something sucks, I think it implies an abdication of responsibility. So I would whack the nice guy and ask them to look at the language they use also. Like I was thinking about it, like this weekend, I had this chest cold. I had to cancel all my plans. So I'm just like in bed trying to get a little bit of work done. My neck stiffened up, so like I'm just not feeling great. So do I say it's a sucky weekend? No, I made a choice to actually like practice gratitude. Like, I know that I get over colds eventually. I've never not gotten over a cold. I have good health. When my neck stiffens up, I always get over it. I don't always know what to do that, but it always happens. So I've been blessed with really good health. So that's actually the attitude that you got to have. So I made a conscious choice, and that's that is something nice guys can learn.
Ari,
So
Ari said, about, oh, actually, Chuck, you said about, whack over the head. I agree that we do need a whack over the head. That would be quite, I mean, I got a whack over the head. I remember there's a beautiful saying, the universe has shaken you to awaken you, and we do need that awakening. I agree with Ari. I don't like the word fault because it removes compassion and it removes understanding. And what that happens then, it removes the ability to have great judgment on actually the reality of the situation. So, for example, I was watching the Railway Men, and it was about the gas leak in India, in Bahor, and the staff made an error. One of the staff made an error, and he had no idea because he was given no training. He was given no instructions how to do it. He was just say, "Hey, get on there, just do this stuff." Now, is it his fault or is it the manager's fault? Or do we need to have better understanding and saying, actually, it's a team whose responsibility is it to make sure that they're the one who managed this? But actually, it was the guy's fault. So it can get very much into the semantics. So I know the nice guys listening to this will be like, well, this word means this word, that means that.
yeah,
I need a complete here broken down into this. Well, so for me, responsibility is very different to the word fault. And I like this, that we can see a different perspective,
yeah,
because in personal development, I heard a lot of personal development, it says everything's your fault. If a car crashes into you and you're stationary, it's your fault. I just couldn't grasp that. I'm like, how is somebody else getting shot or hurt or things my fault? I know it's my responsibility how I can behave or choose to behave with the conscious limitations I have, with my programming limitations that I have. I can choose as best as I can with those limitations I have. And yes, they will be limited. Yes, they won't always be perfect. So it's a good debate on this one.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
I want to say something first, and
Go
that's
right ahead.
thank you. So it's interesting to me that the word fault here is kind of triggered. It's a little bit of a trigger word for people here in this, but I think what I'm saying is that, well, Ari, let's take you for a second. You just got your Taekwondo belt. What level did you come to? What do you like?
I went from blue belt to high blue belt.
Whew, all right.
It's got a
Well
white
done.
stripe on it.
All right. If you went into your dojo, is that what they call them, a dojo? I don't know what the Taekwondo
Dojang.
term. Dojang. You went into your dojang, and you went once a week, and you practice kind of, and then you left, and you didn't do anything else, and you came back the next week, and you left, and you didn't do anything else, and then you went and you complained to your person that you haven't advanced yet. Whose fault is that? Him or yours?
It's my fault.
Okay. So
Because
what
I
I'm
half-assed it.
saying,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that it's our fault in that we half-ass it. There are tons of resources out there, and if you are not taking advantage of those resources and learning from those resources, then then it is your responsibility to learn those things. But it is also your fault if you are not taking advantage of those things. So that's where I see it a little bit differently than you guys see it.
Yeah, I like that analogy, and very much true. It's your fault for that happened, and because what I said was because fault requires understanding. Because when you had understanding and you break down, and you said actually you were only attending once a week, because we got understanding of that, then we can say actually you did X, Y, and Z, and because of that, there's a distinction fault. Now, for example, if he's going once a week and the place shut down for 10 months, and then it opened up again, then it shut down for 10 months again. Now, where is the fault? So it's like by digging into it, can we have discernment, understanding, and then we can be able to say, actually, this is the pinpoint of the fault. We can blame it on internal circumstances, external circumstances as well.
If only relationships were like Taekwondo, and
Right.
you could level
You
up
could
every
advance.
2 months.
You could smack your partner around.
Can we get blue?
Right.
Like, can we get belts for like how well you're doing in the relationship?
Yeah, I mean, that's something satisfying about Taekwondo. Taekwondo has its challenges, and probably this goes for any martial art. But there's a clear structure usually. Now, there's different amounts of work you can put in, but there's a clear structure for advancement. Relationships are more complex than that, and I just think so many people, nice guys and non-nice guys, were getting into relationships without an instruction manual, without a
Absolutely.
clear blueprint. So I think that's why, like you were saying, Faisal, we've got to be compassionate when we're looking at ourselves and the problems that are happening. I just, I'm still quibbling with the word fault.
Yeah,
Can
I
I ask you guys a question?
Sure.
Because this has been sort of like on my mind, and it's part of the topic, is, does the masculine partner have more responsibility for how the relationship goes as the leader in the relationship?
Well,
I love this question.
that would seem to be leader is the person out front that's setting the tone and taking the lead, right? And the one that's now, I think what the leader also has to do is the leader has to take counseling from others, the leader's just like, we're going to go this way. Fuck, screw everybody else. We're going to go this way. And they don't take any kind of counseling over that. Then yeah, that's no good. But I would say, I guess overall, yeah, if you're the leader, the responsibility, lies on you. I think if you think of sports games, coaches, they're the leaders. So if a team lost the game, who does everybody blame? It's the coach. Somebody's got to sort of take the stance, and it's sort of the buck stops with me.
So
Bit
to
like
me,
the captain of the ship.
yeah. Go ahead, Faisal.
So, when they talk about relationships, the man leads, the man's in charge, the man's responsible. Sometimes we can get lost in the masculine and feminine, and we can lose focus, the fact that there's multiple layers when it comes to relationships. Now, the more I'm evolving and going through my deep journey with this as well, because I've heard polarity coaches and masculine feminine coaches, men do this, women do that. I get that. And, men are take accountability, women are flow. And then there's so many things that the feminine is, excused. And there's so many things that the men are excused. And another layer, when I talk about this other layer, and I'm learning this, there is the layer of mature versus immature. And that's regardless of the masculine or feminine, because there are aspects of the mature man and the mature woman who will show up in a certain way. I've seen myself when I've shown up in an immature way and can still be masculine. And I've seen myself show up in a feminine way and be very mature. And vice versa with my partner as well. I've seen that aspect of it. So I think it's very important to have distinctions between mature versus immature as well, because the leadership is not just like the silverback in his tribe. What the silverback does is that he's responsible for the whole collective tribe. And one of the traits that the silverback has, yes, he's got power, he's got strength, he's got aggression, he's got anger, but also he's a peacemaker. Most of his time is kept in trying to keep the peace, keep the tribe safe, keep the tribe well nourished, and make sure that the survival is intact. So one of the things that he has, the silverback has, is very empathetic, understanding, compassionate, forgiving, loyal, determined, focused. And I think that
We're
these
talking about
are
an ape here.
yeah, the silverback, yeah. And I was fascinated with how he shows up, and he also has a harem of women as well, which is quite interesting as well. So there's double layers here, masculine and feminine, but also there's a layer of maturity versus immaturity and co-creation of that.
Again, I think we get into an issue of the difference between a man and a woman and masculine and feminine. And so I would say that the masculine leads and that we are all masculine and feminine. So sometimes my partner is going to lead. She's in her masculine at that point, and I'm going to follow, and that creates flow. So it's not a matter of like the man always leads and the woman always follows. It's the energy of the masculine and the feminine. And I get them confused sometimes myself, and I'll start talking about a man and when I really mean masculine. But it's something I think that is important to understand, is that we're both masculine and feminine.
So if I'm understanding you guys correctly, the responsibility is equal.
The responsibility is whoever's in the masculine energy. Who's ever taking the lead is in the masculine, and the leader's responsible.
So, for example, like a car only has one steering wheel. So whoever's sitting in that driver's seat is responsible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Unless you've got a car with two wheels on it, which is your driving instructor.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what do you guys think about a man who fails to lead, who fails to take responsibility, who just wants everybody else to do things for him?
That's a child,
Is
right?
It's a child. Yeah, yeah, it's a child.
That's what kids want, aren't they? They just want to not take any responsibility. They just put everything on you, and
Hmm.
your responsibility. And I guess when I went through my coaching journey and healing journey, my coach said to me, "It's time to go from a boy to a man."
Hmm.
And I said, "What? I'm nearly 40 years old. How can you tell me I need to be a man?" He said, "Well, psychologically, you still have the traits of the boy." And that's where I wanted everything done for me. I was lazy, not competent in many areas, and that kind of pattern showed up in other areas as well. So I wanted everybody else to do all the work, take the responsibility, and what I wanted to take was the instant gratification, the glory of it all.
Hmm. Yeah. What about you, Ari?
I can identify with what he's saying. I didn't see myself as a leader just until the last few years. So in my marriage, I just felt I saw my wife as the leader.
Hmm.
Um, so it's hard to say that, but that's the truth. So I had to learn it from coaches and
Hmm.
other men.
Yeah.
Um,
And then you did.
and I did, and
Yeah.
I continue to learn it.
Yeah.
You know,
You have
And
have
what?
you ever noticed that? Have you ever noticed that there are some guys who lead really well and they boss, say, their business or their work, but as soon as you take them out that environment, when it comes to parenting, when it comes to relationship, family connections, and everything, they just keep deferring and they just wait for everybody else to give them the instruction. What to do, seeking validation, seeking approval. Is this right? Is this wrong? I don't know what to do here. But as soon as you put them into a work environment, they just boss it.
Hmm. Yeah. Which is an interesting dynamic, I think, because at work they're in their masculine. They come home, they fall into their feminine, and again, it's like taking charge of your own self, your own responsibility, to know that, hey, this isn't working. I need to do something different. I think one of the things Robert talks about, no more Mr. Nice Guy, is the nice guy is the guy that will do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And part of the, I think, place that you have to come to is a place of what I'm doing isn't working. And if I keep doing what I'm doing and expecting a different result, then that's on me. Right? I need to be the one to take the responsibility and say, I'm going to do something different here. And that, again, might come in the form of getting counseling, getting coaching, reading book, reading No More Mr. Nice Guy, getting books on leadership, learning the skill of leadership so that you can, and communication, leadership, communication, and negotiation. Like those three things right there are three top skills that I would say every man needs to get their 10,000 hours in, because that's part of in every man. I mean, who's going to practice his masculine energy. Those are the things that we do, and it is your responsibility to go do those things. And if you don't go do those things, then it is your fault because those things are available.
he likes to throw the F word around.
I'm going to throw that F word in there. You guys don't like it.
I'd buy
Yeah.
that one. That
You'd
one
buy
I
that one?
agree with. Yeah, yeah. Because you're right. If you've acted incompetently, if you know and you slacked off and things like that, okay, yeah, you are fault of that consequence. There you go,
Hmm.
Chuck. I gave you one. You are.
Yeah. Now, the same way, if I've done all of that, if I've learned all of that, and I'm in this relationship and she refuses to change, and I stay in that relationship, that's my choice. But
It's your fault.
it's my fault, right? Because I'm choosing to stay in it. And that's where I'm coming back to the idea of fault, the F word, is that it's more than just responsibility. It's when you're at fault, it's your failure to take responsibility. How's that?
All right, I've got a question for you guys. Imagine we are us three, are women talking about this. Could right?
It's all the man's
Could we
fault.
say
What are you talking about?
yeah, okay, done, finished. And okay, then you just answered my question. It's all his fault. So could they, consciously, could they be taking ownership? Should they be taking ownership as well, saying, yeah, actually, it's my fault, and what's happening in my world and the consequences of that world and what the choices I've made, it's my fault, my responsibility, or is it just the guy's fault?
No, absolutely. I think it's both, because if you're a woman and you're in a relationship that sucks, then it's your responsibility to either change yourself or do what you can to learn about, communication skills and all those kind of things. And if you're in a relationship with a man who simply won't change, then yeah, it's your responsibility then to take care of yourself. And if you stay in that relationship, then you're choosing to do that. It's your responsibility. So I would absolutely say it goes the other way. It goes both ways.
Thank you, honey.
You're welcome. What about you, Artie? Any thoughts on
that? What's the question?
Artie's still recovering from a
You're
cold.
not listening to me. Why don't you listen to me?
Is the woman at fault if she's in a bad relationship?
Yes. Yes, women are just as capable of making choices and taking responsibility. So, yes, and I know plenty of women who are conscious like that, and who take responsibility and who look at themselves and who work on themselves, and that's who I want to get into a relationship with. So that again is a conscious choice that I make now. I'm not going to get in deeper with someone who doesn't self-reflect.
Yeah.
And also someone who, especially when you're listening to them, you're talking, having a conversation, and they have that attitude of, I'm not going to blame my exes all the time. I'm not going to blame my parents or circumstances. And they are mature enough to say, actually, the circumstances, situations, the relationships, my health, everything is my responsibility. And you do get women. It's not many guys or women do that, but there are some women saying, actually, yeah, I take full ownership. It's my responsibility. It sucks. It's really difficult. I know for nice guys and for guys and girls with low self-esteem, self-worth, it's very difficult to take that full ownership, full extreme ownership, because it's hard. It puts you, puts you into a shame spiral, and you got to see your flaws. It's hard.
Yeah. If someone you're dating is blaming, that's a big red flag.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate both of you and your input on this. Thanks so much for joining us today, everybody. What do you think? If you're in a bad relationship, is it your fault? Go ahead and make some comments. Let's get some discussion going here. Are you responsible for making those changes? If you're doing what you've always been doing and getting the same results, whose responsibility is it to make a difference there? Whose responsibility is to change things? And one of the things that I would lead you to do is check down here below. We'll put a link here to getting your balls back, cultivating courage. This is another episode that we did that I think parlays well into this, is that you have to have your balls in order to have courage. And again, thanks for joining us. Thanks, Ari. Thanks, Faisal. And we will see you guys next time on The Nice Guy Show.
You've been listening to The Nice Guy Show, the podcast that helps nice guys move past their insecurities and fears into the fullness of their masculine strength and confidence. Be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast and check out the website niceguyshow.com for more information on how to connect with Chuck and Faisal. Until next time, keep living your best life.